Hi, Aderonke. Thank you so much
Hi.
for joining me on Careers in Accounting.
Thank you
The
so much.
idea of this is to showcase, especially to the upcoming generation of accountants, what is possible with a career in accounting, because a lot of people have this belief that as accountants, whether we like it or not, there are people who still believe that accountants can only end up as bookkeepers or work in a bank, and all those traditional stuff. And
Yeah.
so this idea came from a session that I attended with like young leaders, and it was one of the questions. And I said, wait, how about we bring accountants who have done several things across different career paths and geographies
Mm-hmm.
and just
Mm-hmm.
share their story. So before we go on, I will read your bio and then we'll go into the Q&A segment. Aderonke Ajibola is a CFO-level finance executive and chartered accountant with experience across corporate reporting, treasury, investment structuring, and upstream oil and gas. She's led finance functions at both group and entity level, working closely with boards, investors, and regulators on governance, capital allocation, and strategic decision making. Her career reflects a progression from technical accounting into enterprise leadership, where finance is used as a tool for clarity, discipline, and skill. Aderonke is passionate about equipping accountants to think beyond compliance and build relevance in an AI-enabled, outcome-driven business environment. Amazing bio,
Thank
Aderonke.
you so much.
Welcome
Thank
again.
you. Thank
So the
you.
first question is just tell us about your career journey in accounting, how you got started, and how you got to this point. How can we have this kind of powerful bio?
Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, Aramide, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. So I'll start with the story. My dad was an accountant, right? He worked with the old Pete Marwick that became KPMG. Then he worked with Shell before he retired. So technically, I'd seen it happen. And funny enough, my dad then retired to start his own investment arm. So what that then happened, or his own consulting firm was, so oh, so you can be good at your skill, apply it to your 9 to 5, then take that and build your own name, your own legacy, your own brand, your own firm, your own thing. So obviously studied accounting in school. Then when I immediately after school, I was opportune to work with someone, and when I started working as an auditor. So I've always had a team of board of directors for my life, close friends and allies who we rub ideas with, share ideas with, and rub minds on what we want to do, where we want to go. And in the multitude of people, there's wise counsel. So when we're exchanging ideas, information came along. I also received a lot of scholarship in school. So when I was about to start, and practical story, someone said, "Rinke, send me your resume, I want to see something." And when many saw my resume, they were like, "Wow, you need to start in audit." So they said, when you start in audit, you would get the practical training. Because I'm like, I don't want to be an auditor, I want to be an accountant. And then they go, no, you can be an accountant, but the advice I received was, if you want to be a great accountant, you need to start out in audit. And I
Mm,
did it. I started out working in audit. I spent the first 10 plus years of my life working in audit firms. I worked with an indigenous audit firm based in Lagos here. Then I worked with PwC and I worked with EY. I left EY, I joined the industry. I started my role as an internal auditor for a leading tech company. From internal auditor, I grew up the ranks to be country finance manager for their Nigerian and Gabon and the progression, it came all along, and it's been a wonderful journey. So I started my journey in accounting because I saw what he did. I saw my dad's background. I
mm,
saw the fact that when he got the knowledge and he applied the knowledge for his employer, then eventually for himself before he retired, I saw it apply, I saw it improve his personal story
yeah.
financially. I also saw him give him job satisfaction. And then I also saw that when the way he added value to those employers, they were always calling him for, he became a key man. So you see that phrase, key man risk, it's not new. It's been old. So my dad was a key man for his organization. And I envied that. And I said, oh, someday I want to be that. Someday I want to do that. And I don't have any regrets with it because I'm achieving my goals. I'm happy in my job. I'm happy with my current roles and responsibilities. And yeah, life is really good. No complaints, no doubts, no regrets.
So good to hear that. And I think the part of your story that interests me, or that I would like to zoom in more on, is starting from an indigenous firm. I don't know if you've been seeing all the PR that big four firms have been getting in recent times. And for me, like I've been feeling like this thing is making young upcoming accountants feel like if I don't start my career in a big four, I am screwed. It means that my career, I'm not starting on a good note. But you said you started your
Mm.
career in an indigenous accounting firm and you were still able
Mm.
to work with Big Four before then branching out
Mm.
into industry. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yes. So I did apply to the big fours when I initially started my career. It will be remiss of me not to give that full disclosure. But what happened was I didn't get it. And I didn't let that stop me. I then started to, if you don't get to one place, then what's
Mhm.
the next available option?
Yeah.
The next available option for me became the indigenous firms. And I applied to them and I was successful with that. And if you ask me, those indigenous audit firms actually do the work. They put in the work. The bookkeeping and record keeping happens more there. The
Mm,
audit firms, the big fours, my experience has been that they would get your audited, they'll get your prepared management accounts, your prepared TB, run through the audit procedures, do the checklist. But you see, the problem solving, the account that needs to come out in 24 hours, and how do you want to do it is not nobody's business because there is a
mm,
deadline and you need to sign, or the tax matter. Because in the indigenous audit firm, I worked in audit, I worked in advisory, I worked in tax, three in
mm,
one. Whereas if I'd started audit, I'd likely just be specialized at the time in one unit, either with audit alone or tax alone. So the exposure I got from working in an indigenous audit firm is something. However, I also understand with the person who says it has to be big four,
mhm.
especially in this day and age where branding and global recognition is what everybody wants. But
Yeah.
the truth of the matter, not everybody that can work in a big four. And then
Hmm.
when I also think about the people who joined me in the big four, who we went up the ranks within the big four, a significant portion of them are no longer in the big four. A lot of people have branched out and taken other things to do in life. I know a colleague of mine who has left. A lot of people have also left the country to
Hmm.
work in international
Yeah.
organizations and international foreign countries, right? So it shouldn't be limited to. It has to be big four. The important thing is know your skill, own your skill, regardless. Big four,
Yes.
indigenous, and
Mm.
social media has made it so good that if you are visible, you can enter anyone's DM and anybody can check. At least I get a lot of cold calls via my LinkedIn, and you can check, anybody can check your LinkedIn profile and see, oh, this and that, and get more information about you. And if you see, and funny enough, a lot of these indigenous firms are also getting brand names. A lot of these
Hmm.
indigenous firms are growing up. So there might be the big four, and then, or even the top 10, as we call them sometimes in the industry. But beyond that, there are some, oh, I know this company. Oh, you worked with this person. Oh, then you must have trained with the big ones. You must have owned your skills. So really, it shouldn't be limited to just
Yeah.
big four. This is the
Just
big four.
expand your options, really.
Please
And
do,
if you
please.
do decide to work in the big four sometime down the line, what matters is that you have the experience. And so
Yeah,
people should be more focused on the experience. Yes,
yeah,
the name makes a difference. You and I would agree. I started my career
yes,
in the big four as well. But beyond that, it's what can you do? What can you
yes,
deliver? What are you
yes,
good at? And that should be what's important.
yes, yes.
So, if you would just look back at your career journey, what would you say were some of the defining moments? What were some of the turning points that shaped your career over the years?
So for me, there's several, but I'll just take a couple. One that comes top to mind was when mentor and dear friend, sat me down and said, Rinke, I need you to be a better auditor, and this is how you can be a better auditor. So what that was for me was it was a feedback, one, and two, it was an interactive conversation that I saw coming from a place of care. And what
Mm,
it did was, okay, I saw, okay, I could do better in the areas identified, and I applied myself to that. And, the rest, as they say, is history. Another one that happened for me was sometime during COVID year. And what happened was there were layoffs, which was typical of COVID. And the story for me was someone who had spent about 20 years of her life in an organization where I worked at the time. And she was let go. And this person, forgive me, but the story with her was she didn't have a spouse, she didn't have children, she didn't have anything, dedicated morning hours, 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. to the 7 p.m. I mean, she practically worked for that organization from NYC up until she was over 50 at the time she was let go. And the
mm,
thought came to my mind on, okay, there's something we always say, right? Your career is in your hands.
mhm.
It can happen to anyone. It
Yes.
was COVID. Nobody planned it. What then happened? And then I said, good. So that was a wake up call for me. A switch turned on in my head, and I said, you need to take your career in your hands.
Wow.
Not long after that, I left the big four audit firm, started working in this because what's the peak of working in an audit firm is partnership. Not everyone can get a partner. I wasn't, I was like, let me be realistic with myself, that everyone can get here. Do you understand? That for me was a wake up call to say, I need to have my own thing. From my own thing, I don't see myself
Mm.
disengaging myself or being disengaged by another person, right? So ownership is very important to me. That experience taught me ownership, and I own things, I own assets, I own stuff that I can control from that experience. Another thing that has been critical to me was I think working with everyone I've worked with in my 2 decades, almost 2 decades experience, there's been one impactful lesson or the other that I've learned from relating with my people. And yeah, that I've taken in that course of me on my journey throughout my life. Yeah, the experiences I've lived have shaped the person I am today. Thank you.
What you said about owning your own thing. I work in the tech industry and I can relate with that. I've seen people after a year career, 20-year career, they let go and they literally have nothing to fall back on. And it's
Exactly.
real. So you are also speaking to many of us watching at this point. So now you work for yourself, right? You own your own
I still
consulting
do my nine
company.
to five.
Wow.
I still do my 9 to 5. Sleep is the person that is suffering this conversation.
I
It's
see.
sleep that's suffering it. But yeah,
Interesting.
that's
Because my
fine.
next question was going to be, how does your typical day look like? And now I'm even more interested, combining your 9 to 5 with your
I don't know if
consulting
the
business.
camera might not be able to show you, but see, this is my to do for the day. I need to do all this, right?
Wow.
And so when you say how do I, first of all, this book goes with me everywhere. It's my organizer, right? And
Mm,
I think another reason why I'm able to do it, you see, AI technology has made my life so easier. So I can
mm,
schedule things, I can pre-record, I can do things ahead of time, things that I need to do. Then again, when it comes to owning your skill, I'm very good. I'd say I'm good with Excel and the tools I use for my day-to-day work. So I move fast, I move fast, I move fast. And then when I need to prepare presentations or reports as well, I do that. So my typical day for me starts at 5, get ready for work, go to work. When I get to the office, I do my work 9 to 5, covers that 9 to 5 schedule. Then outside of that, my 5 to 9 now starts where I'm attending to my own reports, attending to my own schedules and all that. Because see, my 9 to 5 has KPIs that I have to meet, and I'm the CFO, so I can't exactly say I'm unavailable, right?
mm.
But what it just does for me is it gives me opportunity to apply myself, apply my skills, and continue to grow up the ladder. So it's really interesting. And the organization I work with, we have, is it about 8, 9 companies in the group? And all of
Wow.
them have different business environments, different needs, and they're being met and attended to. So it's an interesting time to be me. My loved ones always go, "Are you sleeping?" And I always answer yes, because what really,
Wow.
but it's more fun for me right now. I'm enjoying it. So it's really structured. As you can see, there's a list of to-dos to do, and I go through them and I sort that out.
I made a video on my YouTube channel recently and I talked about how people can make money from their 9 to 5. And this was one of the things I highlighted. So it's really interesting to see someone living that and
Yeah,
thriving at it because people will think like, how are you able to manage things? But you've
yeah,
said putting structure and
yeah,
is it time for work? Your KPIs at work are your KPIs at work. And then when you
exactly,
come back home, you switch to Aderonke,
exactly.
the CEO.
Yes, so the CEO and managing partner, and then you wear that hat and
Yes.
you
So
continue.
it's really good. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank
So
you.
your career has spanned over almost 2 decades, like you said. What kind of skills would you say have been critical, soft skills and technical skills for success in your career path?
So obviously the basics, accounting, know your accounting. But you see, if I'm to take two skills, I'll just take two. One, emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
I didn't have it when I just started out. I didn't have it. Oh, and yeah,
All of
using this
us.
to apologize to anybody that I scarred when I was just starting out, forgive me. But I got it because when you're much younger, children don't exactly have EI. Nobody tells a
Hmm.
child to have EI. But then as you grow older, and then with age you experience, EI comes into effect, and then emotional intelligence. Another thing for me is people skill. By anything, strive to have that intelligence and awareness of
Hmm.
people. I run situational analysis in my head where I go through different scenarios, what go right in this approach. And again, it's from audit, audit will ask you to identify the risk and mitigating factors in certain scenarios. So I applied the knowledge into my daily life, and yeah, that's where we are today. So, two important
Yes.
skills beyond the accounting, beyond the technical skills. Please have a good emotional intelligence and good creative people skills.
Thank you. Those are very important skills because especially as you grow through the ladder, you're delegating the accounting stuff. I am not doing balance sheets anymore. I'm the one, I'm
Yeah.
just reviewing them, right? But
Yes,
how do I influence or motivate the person that does the balance sheet to do a good job?
exactly.
And that's
Exactly.
now my job. So
Exactly.
technical skills when you're starting out, it's a given on those skills. And then as you grow along the ladder, you need to develop soft skills, people skills, and
Yes.
emotional intelligence, like she said. So now let's talk about challenges because it's not all bread and butter. And I
Mm,
can imagine that over the last 20 years, you've had some challenges. So
mm,
what are some challenges you've had and how did you overcome them?
mm. Okay, I'll start with the financial challenge. I once worked in an organization where for 4 months I didn't receive compensation from my employer. Yeah, 4 months. Ha! That was wonderful times, wonderful times, wonderful times. Right. The company was going through a financial crunch at the time. I understood because again, I know the numbers, so I can see it's not like someone was hiding money under a secret rock or something. It was just the situation of the business at the time. I stayed through with the business, and there was a turnaround in the business environment. Backlog was paid, and things. So what that taught me was really, or it was a test of my person, my own skill and competence to say, am I able to stay with a significant thing. Another thing that helped me though was because I had a good support system and then I had financial savings. So I had a good support system that was willing to cover that lapse. And then
Hmm.
I also was able to fall back on my savings to be able to weather the storm because that was just it. I didn't have any other option. My employer categorically said, well, there needs to be a pay cut of about 70% for the next 4 months. What do we do? Okay, so yeah, 70%. So I was living on 30% salary. Bills needed to be paid, food needed to be bought. What do I do? But I was able to make that happen. Then outside of that, another challenging for me was again very early in the career when there was this review and feedback cycle where you know you're intelligent, you're smart, you've passed all the professional exams that you need to pass, you passed all the books. But there was a struggle because for me, book knowledge and reality or practical application became two different things.
Mm.
When I had that feedback session or that one-on-one conversation with a supervisor and a dear friend at the time, was able to say, okay, this is the gap. This is what you need to do to fix it. I took active steps and then I fixed it. Again, another important thing for me was when I started taking the personal, because I'm an internet survey person. Come on, I'm in that age where you're abreast of what's going on in the internet. And then I started to say, okay, I need to know, I need to be able to tell my own story. I need to be able to put out what I feel, what I want, whatever. So that for me, it was a big challenging because you had to balance it with the work and being able to, but I was able to overcome that by scheduling my posts, as I said, recording on weekends or very early in the morning. Sometimes I record my thoughts and videos at 3 a.m. and all that. But then, yeah, I'm able to do it and make it work. So another challenge for me, obviously, as a mom, balancing work and life, but
Mm.
then the great support system I have, my family comes through for me, is there every time and anytime I need, it's just a phone call away. They step in and then they help me with my situations. So it's challenging. It's not all roses, but it's been interesting because as you grow, those challenges you solve, and as you solve them, you apply that knowledge. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I just wanted people to know that it's not like it's always because people rarely talk about their
Oh,
challenges. Everybody talks about the success stories, but nobody really talks about the
mm,
challenges. So we are slowly getting
mm,
to the end of this. I just have a few more questions. What are some misconceptions you
okay.
think people have about accountants, and
Mm,
especially that as you're a CFO in a corporate environment and you also have like your own personal consulting firm. So what are some of the misconceptions that you regularly hear um from people?
So I think it's accountants that in parts drive this misconception, which is just focus on the bookkeeping. You don't need to know what is happening in the business. As an accountant, you need to, and I preach this to my team, to any team I'm working in. As an accountant, you are the center of the business. You need to drive that strategy. If you're not at
Mm,
the CFO level, yes, we can talk about driving strategy, but at even a junior, how does my work interface with HR? How does my work interface with operations? How does my work interface with the technical people? How does my work
mm,
interface with legal? So an accountant needs to know all those areas and how their work interfaces with it. Don't just focus on the bookkeeping. And how do
yes.
you do this? You sit down with your stakeholders. You always talk about stakeholder management, right? Sit down with your stakeholders, plan, oh, what is your objective for this particular period? Oh, what service can I render to help you achieve your objectives? And oh, how can I comment, make sure that you achieve your objectives? Those are what an accountant should be doing. The how, the why, the when, what can I do to make your own life easier? An accountant's job, you should be beyond the bookkeeping. How can I help you today? That's the mood an accountant should always take to the work. Tell me, how can I help you with your own goals and objectives? Because at the end of the day, everything anybody does, legal, operations, sales team, everything translates to the number in one way or the
Yes.
other, either the revenue line or the
Mm,
expense line. So you
yeah.
as an accountant, beyond your budgeting, beyond your tax, beyond your filing, beyond your bookkeeping, good, you're doing your job. But do you understand how the other person's work interfaces with your own work? If you don't have that knowledge, there is a gap. And you can only get that knowledge by actively seeking that knowledge and engaging with them. Because my experience has been that people will not actively give you that information. I'm sorry. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't ask me, I won't tell. That's been don't ask, don't intel is what I've seen. Right. But then when you now go out of your way and you are seeking that knowledge, people will willingly give you that information, right? And then it would help you make informed decisions because that information empowers you to make informed decisions and to advise management effectively, either for your liquidity, from your treasury management, from your budgeting perspective. A lot, if you don't have that information, how will you plan? Yeah.
Honestly, you're so spot on, right? Because especially now with AI coming I was seeing some tweets this past week about how someone said they made a three statements model on an AI tool, and that's the work of an accountant. So if you're just buried in the books, your job is at risk.
Your absence
You
will not
know?
be felt because your impact doesn't
Yes.
felt. So they need to
Yes.
know, oh, yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, finance is also evolving to be business partnering,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
sitting with the business, providing
Exactly.
insights that they do not have to be able to
Mhm.
enable their own jobs, to enable the
Yeah.
outcomes that they're looking for. So
Yeah.
that's really good. Thank you so much for that. So now let's talk about AI. AI and the accountant. What do you think?
Wow. I think it start and I made this post, I made this comment on someone's post. You see, AI, it will make your life easier, but don't let it replace your thinking. And what I've seen is people just go, AI, do it for me. I'm like, no.
Mm,
It would create, because AI is a case of garbage in, garbage out. It can only think
yes,
beyond the experts which you give it. And we've seen instances where you are correcting ChatGPT. Funny enough, practical story. My children's homework, my primary grade 4, my 8-year-old homework, AI fails it sometimes. AI doesn't get it right. You're wrong here. This is the answer. And you're, oh, yes, you're correct. So why an auditor or an accountant at any level, either junior, intermediate, or even senior level, want AI to replace them with their thoughts and their thinking is beyond me. You should be able to guide that tool. Use it, please, by all means, use it. Use it for your emails, for your tools, for your presentations. Use it because it actually makes your work, it encourages efficiency. But don't
yes.
let it replace your thinking. The moment you let AI replace your thinking, there is a gap there. And the thing about AI is it's becoming readable. People who see AI, especially people that use AI, if you send me
They
an
can
email with
tell.
certain words and certain punctuations, oh, this was AI, I would know, right? But because there is a way it will sound, that's the thing about
Yes.
habits and structure and patterns. There's a way it will sound, especially if it's a tool that you've been using consistently. You've trained it to sound like you, so it will sound like you without being you. So you keep your originality. Don't let it replace your thought process.
Thank you so much. So, final question. What advice would you give to an aspiring accountant? I mean, you had your dad, so that's good. But what if someone wanted to be an accountant, they had no guidance? What would be your advice to them?
An accountant would be believe in yourself. Don't. My confidence level, oh my goodness, 1,000%. I might be saying the wrong things, right? But trust me, my confidence level was 1,001% in any room I entered in. I used to even say back then that if I sat down across the president, trust me, this is the best level you're going to get. I would give you the respect of your office, but I'm going to come and pay myself lower or less simply because, right? So believe in yourself bigly, like the American president would say, believe in yourself bigly. So learn every day, unlearn old patterns, and be willing to learn new patterns because changes happen. IFRS changes, tax laws
Mm.
change, the business environment changes, technology is changing. But if you're stuck in the past, even Stone Age at the time was the best that happened, but then all of a
Yeah.
sudden things have changed, right? So as an accountant, be willing to learn, unlearn, and relearn, and believe in yourself.
Thank you so very much. It's been an amazing conversation, and you guys, it took several emails to bring Aderonke here, but I'm glad we're finally able to do this. Thank you so much, Aderonke. I am going to be leaving all your links
Thank you for
in my
having me.
description. You guys, if you want to know more
Thank
about how she's able to balance, and me, I'm definitely going sliding into a DM to ask her how she's able to balance a 9 to 5 and a personal consulting firm. I want to know how. But if you have any questions for Aderonke, you can reach her. Her links, all the links to our pages across all social media will be in the description box. And feel free to reach her and ask her any question. Thank you so much, Aderonke. I know you've had a long day. I am also just leaving the office
you. Thank
after
you so
this
much,
session.
Aramide.
But thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for making time. This is
Thank you so
definitely an
much.
investment
I
into the
appreciate it.
next
Thank you so
generation.
much.
So
Thank you.
talk to
Thank you
you
for the
later.
opportunity.
And thank you
Yes,
again.
we'll
Have
stay
a
in
good
touch.
evening.
Thank you so much. Good
Yeah.
night.
Good
Bye-bye.
night. Bye.